with the man of the hour, Carl Ja. He is host of Silk and Steel. Excuse me, host of Silk and Steel podcast focused on China and surrounding regions and their history, culture, and politics. Carl, what is going on, my man? How you doing this morning? Happy New Year. I think I've
Hey,
spoken to
Jamar, thank you.
you. Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year.
I've
Happy New
had
Year.
you on before, after the New Year,
I,
right?
I think
Okay,
you did, but you know what? Chinese New Year is coming, so you can wish me Happy New Year again.
fair enough. I'll say it again. How you doing, man? You doing okay?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you, Jamar?
I am doing all right. We are in a new presidency. It is official. Donald Trump is king of America. Um, what is your thoughts on that? I mean, what is your expectation, especially in relation to China? Um, to give Donald Trump credit, and I don't know how long this credit is going to last, but when he invited Xi Jinping to the inauguration, it seemed heartfelt. It seemed honest. Like it didn't necessarily seem like a power play. It seemed like he legitimately was open to Xi Jinping coming to the inauguration. Um, Give me your thoughts. What is your thinking so far
You
in
know,
regards to what Trump is going to do this term in relation to China?
Trump. I Trump surprised me. I have to admit, Trump surprised me. I mean, number one is a ceasefire deal in
Mhm.
Palestine. Trump with that act, and also Trump called Xi Jinping. He said they had an excellent conversation. They talk about area of cooperation. They talk about how they're going to solve the problems in the relationship. So these two things already mark Trump about Biden. This makes Biden the worst president in the recent history, in the recent memory. He's worse than even he's up there. Joe Biden is up there with George W. Bush, who, by the way, the DNC has rehabilitated because they hate Trump. And
Yep.
Trump just showed that, you know what? I'm actually not as bad as those guys. And and there's that's something. That's something. But the real thing we need to watch out for is what about the people that Trump surround him with in the cabinet?
Right.
Because we have some noted China hawks like Marco Rubio, and and uh, uh, so we're gonna have to see whether this Trump presidency will be a replay of Trump 1.0, when basically he led some of the people in his cabinets sabotaging him, like how John Bolton kind of sabotaged his rapprochement with North Korea with Kim Jong Un. So I, I I don't think Trump had bad experiences with Xi Jinping. He actually traveled to China, unlike Joe Biden. Joe Biden has never traveled to China during his term as president.
Yeah.
Despite him talking about him walking with Deng Xiaoping in the Himalayas, which never happened, and he, Joe Biden actually knows Xi Jinping when Joe Biden was the vice president. Yet he never even visited China. He didn't want anything to do with China. He doubled down on Trump's sanction on China. So Trump have leverage right now to negotiate. This shows in how he handles the whole TikTok fiasco.
Right.
Biden is the one who signed the law of when the Congress passed the ban. Joe Biden was the one who signed it, and because I think Biden is intending to like kick the ball to Trump, but essentially that handed a victory to Trump. It's a very easy victory. Trump just comes in and says TikTok is back. By the way, TikTok is not really back because Trump can't really reverse a law passed by U.S. Congress.
Yeah, he can
What
only
Trump
ignore
did
it.
is give it 75 days extension for the implementation, which says TikTok either needs to be sold or be banned from US. And
Mhm.
this is why Apple and Google are still abiding by the ban by getting they removed TikTok from their app store. If you have a new phone, I'm sorry, you can't download TikTok right now in USA because Apple and Google are still following the ban. So, but Trump he's the maverick, right? I mean, I do believe he could potentially make a deal with China. And we're going to just have to see how it's going to play out.
Mhm. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree with you about Joe Biden, man. Joe Biden has been a horrible president. I mean, he's bringing us to the brink of war in multiple instances. I mean, even with China, like Joe Biden saying in one sense, we agree and accept the one China policy. And then in another sense, we will go to war to protect Taiwan. It's like, what? What? You are really saying that you're going to go to war with China? Okay, fair enough. And it's going to be over Taiwan, an area to which you say you accept is part of China? Like, it was one of the weirdest, strangest, weakest presidencies that we have ever had. And I agree with you. The ceasefire deal, that we'll see how long it lasts, but it's clear that even before Donald Trump was president, he was putting pressure to get that deal done, a deal that Netanyahu did not want to accept, avoided accepting for what, 6, 7 months, and then was kind of brought to the table to accept almost overnight. Now, the real question is whether or not Donald Trump is going to put pressure on Israel to keep it, considering what is taking place in Lebanon, and considering that up to this point, the U.S. has accepted any and everything that Israel has effectively said. So, but I agree with you, though. The fact that Trump, with the slightest bit of pressure before even getting into office, was able to get it. And to your point, willing to have a conversation with Xi Jinping, willing to have a conversation with Kim Jong-un, willing to have a conversation with Putin, all of these things right off the bat, something that Biden couldn't or wouldn't even consider doing. So no, I agree with you. The phone call with Xi Jinping, is there a readout of what that was about?
Well, so far, I only saw a tweet from Trump himself. He said, I just spoke with Chairman Xi. The call was very good for both US and China. And it's my expectation that we will solve many problems together, starting immediately. We discussed balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects. President
Right.
Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. So it's actually a very hopeful message of peace, of talking about solving problem rather than placing blames.
Mhm.
So this, I mean, before, one of the big talking point about from Republican side talking about China is I don't think it's even Republicans. I think it's from both aisle actually. Talking about China is how China caused the fentanyl crisis in the United States
Right.
instead of pointing the finger at the big pharma who started the opioid crisis in the US, who have been convicted in the court of law, the Sackler family. But these guys also own the media, so you can't really talk about that. And so much easier to blame China, who makes the legitimate pharmaceutical ingredients that was just being diverted by the gangs in U.S. and Mexico to make fentanyl. And what one area China and U.S. can work on is the law enforcement used to have a trace program where they will trace the shipment of chemical precursors when they leave Chinese factory to make sure they don't end up in the wrong hands in North
Right.
America. Like I fully expect they will try to restore that working relationship, which has been completely wrecked by the false accusation of Chinese like secret police department in U.S. and so that's what brought end to the law enforcement cooperation because like people will freak out with like Chinese police presence in North America. So I expect they will try to work on that relationship and the trade. Trump is always about trade. I expect to try to work out some deal because he has threatened tariffs and everything. But you know what? The easiest way to balance trade is just lift all the high tech, all the chip bans. China want to buy chips from United States. Biden administration said no. Even on the last day of Biden administration, they pushed out even more drastic chip restriction to restrict export of NVIDIA's AI chips to the world. It divided the world into 3 tiers. Like China and Russia is like the bottom tier, and then you have all these countries in Europe like Portugal, Poland, And Austria, somehow they became tier 1. Somehow they're also on the restricted list. I don't know what Portugal did, or Poland, or Austria, but they're only 11 countries in Europe were on the trusted list. So I mean, that's foolish. I think for Trump, if you really care about trade deficit, just allow American companies like Nvidia to export AI chips to China. China used to spend like 450 billion dollars
Wow.
on chip imports, more than they spend on oil, because China spent about 350 billion importing oil. So
Wow.
so that's a huge chunk of money that could help toward the balancing of trade if Trump really care about that.
Wow. That's a lot of money. Xi Jinping apparently had a conversation with Putin, a video call. Apparently it was long. I would imagine detailed. Both leaders seem to really get along and like each other. So good on that. What was that conversation about? I saw the readout on the Russian side, but give me your take in regards to what that conversation was about, what they were discussing. Give me your thoughts.
Well, they first of all, they reaffirmed their strategic partnership. Xi Jinping brought up the fact that in 2024 alone, these two have met 3 times. None of them met with Biden, but they have saw each other 3 times, and Xi Jinping invited Putin to come to China for the 80th anniversary of victory over Japan in World War II, and Putin likewise invited Xi Jinping for the May Day victory parade in Moscow, celebrating the victory over Nazi Germany in the Great Patriotic War. So both sides reaffirmed their bonds forged during the World War II fighting fascism, and both sides are committed to continue to deepen their relationship. Putin mentioned that Russia is now the top oil exporter to China, number 1 provider of natural gas, and Russia and China are naturally complementary economies. Xi Jinping also said something very important. He said, "We will continue to resist external pressures on maintaining our stable strategic partnership." I mean, external pressure, everyone knows that's from the U.S. and the NATO. And we're going to have to see what Trump can offer either one of them, because one of the Trump some of the people that surrounding Trump have been talking about this for a long time. What they want to do is they want to pry Russia away from China's embrace. They wanted to get Russia on U.S. side, winding down the Ukraine war, so U.S. can concentrate on containing China and maybe even get Russia's help. I don't think that will pan out, and I think that the fact that you remember Donald Trump said that within 24 hours he will make a call to Putin and Zelensky and end the Ukraine conflict. Well, guess what?
24 hours.
Yeah. Guess what? Within the 24 hours of Trump presidency, it was Xi Jinping and Putin that made the call, and then they made the deal. They made a deal to reaffirm their relationship, their strategic partnership, and they reaffirmed. It's also very important. Xi Jinping mentioned this year is the 80th anniversary of UN, and and Putin suggests that China and Russia play a strategic important role to reaffirm to shape a more just multilateral world. And so they're talking about Russia and China working together to shape multipolarity, and this contrast was what Trump wants to do, because Trump right now, he already signed an executive order to pull out the WHO, pull out the Paris climate agreement. So United States is backing off on all the voluntarily to pull out all this multilateral institutions that United States itself helped to build.
Hmm.
And whereas China and Russia is like, you know what, we will step up. We will step up and shape the new multipolar world order.
It is so wild to me. I mean, we helped create many of these systems that we're now effectively pulling out of. Why do you think that the US has taken this kind of? I had a conversation with someone yesterday about this kind of the way the world seems to be, let's say, reshaping itself, where there seems to be this kind of skepticism towards international cooperation, um, this kind of re-entrenchment. With Trump saying, "Well, yeah, we need to take Greenland, China. I'm sorry, Greenland and Canada, and Panama Canal." And keep in mind, the reason he's saying this, I think, and I want to get your take on it, is because he's looking at the world and he sees the U.S. as being more vulnerable than it has been in the past. I mean, in a weird case, you can almost see Joe Biden thinking in similar terms, right? But the way Joe Biden went about it was effectively using Europe as vassal states in order to antagonize all of these countries, whether Russia, China, or, whatever. Whereas Trump looks at it as, well, we need spheres of influence. And so our sphere of influence is Northern America. And if we can get our hands on Greenland and Panama Canal and Canada, we will be a match for, let's say, the relationships that are creating around the world against the US. Missing the fact that the reason those relationships were forming was because of the US behavior to the rest of the countries around the world. I mean, when you're setting fires all across the planet, you can imagine that countries are going to say, hey, we need to stop these fires and we need to deal with the country that's creating the fires. How do you see this? I mean, why do you think that there's this kind of re-entrenchment, this re-evaluation of the US's role in the world led by one Donald Trump?
Well, United States always made an exception for itself when it comes to international law.
Mhm.
ICC, that was supposed to be for the colored folks. The ICC is supposed to be for the people in the jungle, arresting all these African dictators, not the nice people in the jungle, in the garden of Europe and North America.
Uh-huh.
And US actually have a law that if ICC tried to enforce law against any U.S. politicians,
Attack
they
the
will
Hague.
invade Hague. I'm not making this up. People can
No,
look
it's
it
called
up.
Attack the Hague. Yeah, it was under George
Yes,
Bush. Yeah,
U.S. will invade Hague if ICC ever try to force its law on
insane.
U.S. officials. So U.S. always take it, but what Biden has done, a lot of people in the Biden administration still believe in like the full spectrum dominance. They try to do that by building alliances. Biden, Blinken, whenever they give a public speech, they always talk about the importance of partnership and alliances. Of course, we
Yeah.
don't know. We know U.S. don't treat them as partners; they're vassal states. But at least they maintain the facade. They are trying to put a tight leash on their vassals all around the world. But what Trump is a different approach. Trump administration, they saw that U.S. can no longer maintain a full spectrum dominance all over the globe. This is why there's a retrenchment back to Western Hemisphere. This is why Greenland and Canada could be important because um, Arctic ice is melting. And that it's favorable to Russia, actually, and China, because now that opens up the Northern Passage. China now can ship going through, passing through Bering Strait, going through Arctic, travel to Europe at a much shorter distance and time than they would go through. Well, they can't. There's a bit of a problem in the Red Sea right now, and all Houthi managed to divert like 15% of world marine traffic all the way to around Africa. So it saves even more time to go through the Arctic route from China to Europe right now. And US sees that, and US wants to be part of the action. You can't have Russia has all the fun. Climate change actually favors Russia, so this is why they want Greenland. They want Canada. They want this old new frontier that just opened up because Greenland is also very strategic. You already have U.S. bases, by the way. U.S. have a so-called space base in Greenland, but it's more like a U.S. military base. It actually monitors missile launches and stuff. That's what it's designed for. So if U.S. really want to take Greenland by force, there's nothing Denmark can do. There's nothing Denmark can do about it. What's Denmark gonna do? Are they gonna call NATO for help? I mean, U.S. is NATO, so there's nobody going to come to their rescue. This is something within U.S. grasp. Unlike Ukraine, that's like imperial overreach, or even Taiwan. This is something U.S. can very easily grab. Greenland and even Canada. I mean, like, what?
What are they going to do, right?
Yeah, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? So this is what they're trying. Right, reaching for the low hanging fruit right now. They're trying to just consolidate the U.S. hegemony in the West Hemisphere. The reinforced Monroe Doctrine, if you will.
I'm curious. How do you think Xi Jinping is going to deal with this? I've asked. When I've had guests on China, I think I've asked this question before because I'm super curious about the answer. China tends to go with this idea of win-win relationships. This idea that, we're going to look at the world, we're going to create partners, we're going to create situations where people, let's say, get something out of any deal that we make with them with the idea of creating a sustainable relationship. And it's not that I don't believe that a country of that size and that magnitude can't, let's say, have their own point of view and will be willing to push that point of view in a negotiation. But it does seem like they're willing to have win-win relationships. It is like, how do you deal with a country that is zero-sum, that doesn't believe in these win-win relationships, that for all intents and purposes looks at the world as either vassals or enemies? And maybe Donald Trump is more open to negotiations, but Donald Trump still has that mindset. You can hear it in his voice when he talks. I mean, he considers himself a strong man in the way that he looks at himself. How does China, Xi Jinping specifically, deal and relate with a country like that?
We're going to see how, we're going to see this play out right now, how the TikTok saga is going to play out, because Trump said he proposed a 50-50 joint venture with TikTok, where United States owns 50%. But I don't know what he means by United States. Does he mean American companies or American investors? Because right now, the institutional investor from the West already own like 60% of ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. I mean, so they already own more than 50%. But does he mean like the government of the United States is going to take a 50% stake on TikTok? That is the interesting proposal. You're talking about state. This is like state capitalism now.
Yes.
U.S. So we're gonna have to see what kind of deal Donald Trump is proposing. But China is there. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. Trump talking about taking over Panama because, oh no, the Chinese are taking over Panama, which is completely ridiculous. The whole talks about China taking over Panama is because since 1998, a Hong Kong-based company, Hutchinson Wanghua, and later consolidated into CK Hutchinson, which is owned by Hong Kong billionaire Li Ka-shing, has taken over one of the port to run one of the port in Panama. Now they operate 3 ports, and the United States always been freaked out about this. Oh, Chinese influence. But even if U.S. take over Panama, China already built a megaport in Chancay in Peru. Right. South American goods no longer have to go through Panama Canal. They can just get redirected to Chancay Port. And China is building another megaport in Mexico. So like that. So now all the Latin American trade with China will be less dependent on Panama Canal. When you have these megaports in Peru, in South America, and another megaports in Mexico. So it makes U.S. controlling Panama Canal less of a choking point, less of relevancy. This is China's strategy. We're gonna build out so many infrastructure, so many ports, so many connectivity that U.S. Navy can isolate into one single choke point and chokehold. and this is the what the U.S. calls China's string of pearls strategy. They're just casting pearls everywhere, and U.S. Navy does not have the capacity to be at everywhere all at once. So this is this. So I mean, China is not. China is playing the long game, and I believe that they might even. I mean, I don't know. There might even be a possibility they will let TikTok be like a joint venture with Trump. Who knows? Anything is possible. So I'm waiting to see how that saga will wind. By the way.
I don't think I mean, just going for the, okay, I'll organize my thoughts. The string of pearls strategy, yes, where they're basically building ports. And I guess that kind of gets to my point, right? It's not like they're going to those countries and building military bases. They're actually building stuff that's to the benefit of the country itself. And so the countries are more inclined to want to work with China because they're doing things to the benefit of the country itself. That port is not just going to take Chinese products. That port is going to take all sorts of products from anywhere they want to use that port. And all of those things are going to be in the best interest of the country itself that utilizes them. So yeah, I would imagine that many of those countries are okay and on board with China for doing so. The Panama Canal thing was always weird to me, and I didn't quite get it. China doesn't own the Panama Canal, correct?
Yeah, I mean, can I just say it? These mofos in Washington, they're racist because they find out a Hong Kong billionaire Li Ka-shing has this company that runs this port in Panama Canal. Oh my God, Chinese influence! CCP is controlling Panama Canal. I mean, there's no indication that Li Ka-shing is even like Beijing's man. He was because Beijing didn't really completely trust him because he took an ambiguous stance during the 2019 Hong Kong protests. So Li Ka-shing actually moved his headquarters outside of Hong Kong. Li Ka-shing is now like based outside of Hong Kong. So but I think it's just as simple as that, just racism. The people like, oh my God, this is a Hong Kong guy is taking over is taking over Panama Canal. It's a Chinese influence.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very strange. I mean, when you're in a country like this, it's always shocking at how little, I guess, they know or care about the rest of the world. And when they're looking at China, they're looking at China as this kind of huge geopolitical enemy, when it doesn't really need to be that way. Why do you think they consider China an enemy in general?
Well, there are multiple reasons. I mean, one is because China is non-Western and non-white. Kieran
Mhm.
Skinner, the former national security advisor to the first Trump administration, said that. She said that aloud. She said because unlike Soviet Union, which still, Russia is still part of the Western culture, China is from like an alien civilization, and they're not Caucasian. It's a first like big Caucasian power the United States have to contend with, and another reason, Jake Solomon talked about this. Jake Solomon gave an interview to China Project podcast, but this podcast had been scrubbed off the internet for some reason. So during the podcast, he said, "Well, actually, he admit China is actually not an existential threat to the United States, but he said China is very useful concept to unite various factions, United States, into to galvanize everyone into a national project." I mean, Matt Ignacia openly talk about this on X on Twitter. He said China is what could unite the left and the right in the United States into into reindustrializing America. Bring the jobs back, reindustrial because. We know what the problem with U.S. is. The problem is the freaking Wall Street types. They have been hollowing up the industry. They always chase the highest margin, so they outsource all the manufacturing capacity in East Asia since 1970s.
Yep.
And we're seeing the result is increasingly financialization of the U.S. economy, and the increasing dependence on, say, manufactured goods from China. China didn't come to United States to point gun to all these high executives as they move your factory to China. No. They move willingly, chasing profits. And now there's a real problem in the United States where the middle class is atrophied as a result of all this offshoring for 40 years. And people are angry. And what guess what? But you can't blame the Wall Street, all the fat cats who actually did this to them, because these guys also owns our media. They owns our corporate media. So the easiest scapegoat is number one, immigrants, number two, China. And so blame immigrants, blame China is an easy political game for these politicians trying to win votes. So there's that, and then there are people who are worried about China surpassing the United States as the number one power in the world, and they wanted to do things in U.S. like expand government control. How do you justify that? National security. Like the whole. I mean, look at the whole TikTok thing. A lot of the TikTokers actually understand this perfectly. This is not about China, because all your data is already in the United States. Like a lot of Canadians found out during the TikTok outage that they were also offline on TikTok, because let's face it, their data was not storing on servers in Canada. Their data was all stored in U.S. servers, and that impacted even some users in Thailand, because all these people's data was actually stored in the United States. So this is not about data. This is about control. This is about narrative control, because TikTok is one of those few platforms that was less stringent on censorship when it comes to sensitive issues like Palestine. Well, until recently, I saw some people posting after the ban, now you can't say Free Palestine in TikTok anymore. So maybe Trump made them bend the knee, but this was the reason for the ban in the first place, because there's organization like ADL, like the ADL president openly said, we have to capture TikTok because TikTok is like Al Jazeera on drugs. It's radicalizing our youth against Israel. This is a battle that Israel must win. And so you have organizations like ADL and Apex, spending a lot of money, want to shut down TikTok. You have all the tech overlords like Zuckerberg want to shut down their rivals, and then you have all these national security weirdos, who always have a hard boner for China, want to shut down anything Chinese. So it's a combination of these things working together, and I think that also kind of explains the Sinophobia in United States. It's because now a lot of the American businesses, especially in the tech community, they see China as a serious competitor, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, right? I mean, because he has no face. He used to like scrape and bow to Xi Jinping. Ask Xi Jinping to let him into the Chinese market. I asked Xi Jinping to name his son, but he got suddenly rejected. Right. So now he turned like 180. He wants to get rid of TikTok. He wants to be go hard on China. And but it's all about money. When it comes down to it, it's all about money. All these the tech our tech overlords in Silicon Valley, both Google and Facebook, they're not in China, so they don't lose anything, but they have everything to gain by shutting down their rival like TikTok. And then you have Elon Musk. He doesn't want Chinese EV to come to the United States. He said that very clearly. If it's not for tariffs, the Chinese EV would destroy the American car industry. And so there's a combination of big business, national security elite, and of course you have those ADL and Apex freaks, because they want to control the narrative. This is like a really combination of all these uniquely American elements coming together to make China the big scapegoat.
Well, it's wild, right? Because initially